In my opinion, there was not a more shocking move in terms of the quarterback position in this year's draft class than the New Orleans Saints taking Tyler Shough. Tyler Shough a couple months ago was literally seen as an undrafted to day 3 prospect. Somehow, someway though, not only did Shough get drafted, but he became the 3rd quarterback off the board behind both Jackson Dart and Cam Ward. Tyler Shough has had a ridiculous and crazy story to get to this point, as he overcomes some terrible stuff in his childhood, has been through a ton of ridiculous injuries, and spent nearly 7 years at 3 schools at the college level. In today's video, I want to talk about Tyler Shough. We're going to go through why this was an impossible quarterback pick for the Saints, talk about his ridiculous college journey, and what he potentially brings to the table down in New Orleans. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about Tyler Shough. Okay, so in order to talk about how Shough got to this point, we first need to go back in time. Tyler comes from a close family, as he had 2 older sisters and a younger brother. His dad was a retired police officer, and in 2006, the family was hit with a major curveball that nobody ever wants to hear, and that is the fact that she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and given 9 months to live. At the time, Tyler was only 6 years old, and he remembers all the difficulty that happened and all the pain that ensued from this. In 2006, just a few weeks after his mom's diagnosis, he found out even worse news. His 19-year-old brother had passed away. The Shough family has declined to publicly share about what happened with that, but that is truly unbelievable and a terribly difficult time. He ended up playing all sports while he grew up, and there was one story in particular that showed the sort of mental intangibles and set of morals that he had. He had an insane competitive fire during their little league, and after getting struck out, he ended up talking back to the coach. Okay, you're probably wondering where this is going, but at the next practice, he had a handwritten apology letter, and ever since then, he has never been impolite to a coach, according to pretty much all sources. He's a guy who learns from his mistakes and has respect for his coaches. Once he arrived at Chandler High School in Arizona, he became a starting quarterback as a junior, which was historic. It'd be the first time in 10 years at Hamilton that there was not a starting quarterback who was a senior, and this goes back 17 years. The following spring, he'd end up blowing up as he got offers from Michigan, Alabama, Washington State, and Mizzou. He said, quote, "The Alabama offer was out of the blue. I was not talking with them previously, but then I got in contact with them, and their head recruiter offered me." In June of 2017, as I said, he became one of the top quarterback prospects in the country and also dominated at the Elite 11, and at 6'5", he had a final list that included North Carolina, Cal, South Carolina, Indiana, and Michigan, and he decided to choose North Carolina over 20 offers. At the time, that was with head coach Larry Fedora, but he would flip his commitment to Oregon in 2017. Tyler Shough was now a player that Oregon was going to build around, and he said, quote, "I had to meet the coaches, and it was a perfect situation for me as a quarterback. They were kind of low in depth, and I had a good connection with the coaches, and I want to be a part of that high-powered offense, and it was a special class coming in." During his junior season, Shough threw for 2,079 yards with 27 touchdowns, and as I said, he blew up at the Elite 11, and many thought he was a top 5 quarterback talent in the nation with his ability to break down film, make reads, and his passing touch. As a senior, Shough threw for 3,071 yards with 30 touchdowns and 5 picks, and led them to a second round of the playoffs. Scout.com said, quote, "Shough is a pure passer with a great feel for the position. He has a smooth, easy delivery, is smart with the football, and among the most accurate quarterbacks in the country." In total at Hamilton, he threw for 5,150 yards, 57 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. He was the program's first multi-year starter in over a decade, and scouts really like this guy. According to 24/7 Sports, Shough was a 4-star recruit, the number 6 pro-style quarterback, and the 94th best player in the class of 2018. This was a long time ago. Before we continue on with the rest of the video, go down to the comment section, let me know which rookie I should cover next, and check out my playlist, which includes a ton of features on this year's rookie class, which will continue to be updated. So Shough did not throw a pass during his first season in Eugene, and he admitted it was very tough. He said, quote, "When I first got here to Oregon, Justin almost didn't like me as much because I was always trying to compete to the best of my ability, and I was just having fun with it." Justin as in Justin Herbert. He decided to redshirt as a freshman and anticipated that Herbert would go off to the NFL in 2019. But, much to his surprise, Herbert would return to school and play the 2019 season. Shough became Herbert's backup that year, and that past spring he ended up blowing up. He apparently had a terrific performance in their spring game, and it led a lot of people to think that he was the future of the program. And what's interesting is at the time they were hosting DJ Uiagalelei on a recruiting visit. Eventually, he'd take over as the starter in 2020, as he became the guy for the Ducks for one lone season. Shuck would end up having an interesting season with Oregon in 2020, as he did have 4 touchdowns against UCLA, but eventually by the end of the season, he was benched in favor of Anthony Brown. In total, Shuck threw for 1,600 yards with 13 touchdowns, and with Anthony Brown returning and Ty Thompson coming in, he saw the writing on the wall. He decided to enter the transfer portal, and ended up getting over 100 phone calls from college coaches. He decided to transfer over to Texas Tech, where he quickly won the starting job for Matt Wells and Texas Tech at the time. Sadly though, things would not go according to plan, as each of his 3 seasons at Texas Tech were ended by an injury. In 2021, he had a fractured collarbone against Texas, and then in 2022, it was rebroken in the first game, and then he suffered a season-ending broken fibula against West Virginia in 2023. Shuck had 3 straight seasons which were ended by a terrible injury, and while he did have moments of brilliance, ultimately that's all everyone remembered, the guy who was made of glass. His best season came in 2022 as he threw for 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns, but both 2021 and 2023 ended up being below 1,000 yards. In total, in his career to this point, he ended up having 4,625 yards, 36 touchdowns, and 27 games played. He also ran for about 700 yards and 10 scores. For his final year of eligibility, he would transfer over to the Louisville Cardinals, where they were looking to replace former quarterback Jack Plummer, who was also a journeyman type. Honestly, these guys were very similar, and the Louisville staff did a full medical workup on Shuck and determined that the injuries were more due to bad luck than anything else. So, he got cleared and became their starter. This past season, Shuck actually ended up being really solid for Louisville, as in his first game against Austin Peay he had 4 touchdowns, and from there would continue to be consistent. He helped them beat teams like both Georgia Tech and Virginia, and kept them close in games against Notre Dame and SMU. His best performance came against Miami in a loss, as against the number 6 Canes, he threw for 342 yards and ended up having 4 touchdowns without an interception. He'd then lead them to a win over Boston College, which would get them a lot closer to bowl eligibility, before helping them upset number 11 Clemson. He had 1 touchdown on the ground in that game. To finish out the year, he had the worst game of his season against Stanford in a loss, but would finish with a 37-9 victory over Pitt, and then he ended up helping them beat Kentucky. He honestly didn't play that great in that game either. In total, Shuck was an all-ACC honorable mention at quarterback, throwing for 3,195 yards, with 23 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, and he also completed 63% of his passes. He also ended up running a 4.63 in the 40-yard dash and had a 32-inch vertical. But you're probably asking yourself, why is a guy who will turn 26 in September, who's had multiple season-ending injuries, and has had multiple season injuries, plus never having that great of a stat sheet, being considered a potential franchise quarterback? That was a question that was going through my mind, but for most of the offseason, he was considered a day 3 pick. But he blew up in the last couple of weeks, and a week away from the draft, he had the most buzz of any quarterback. This came after having 32 starts in 7 years and passing for 7,900 yards and 59 touchdowns. He's considered a talented passer with a good arm who's capable of making pro throws that are both intermediate and deep. He is inconsistent though, but plays with good field vision, has good eyes, and is more importantly extremely tough and extremely durable. He also has the typical height for an NFL quarterback, as he's 6'5" with a big arm and a long frame. He's definitely physically mature and kind of checks every single box. I don't think he's going to be a Patrick Mahomes level of player, but he's not really that bad in any area, and then combining some other intangibles made him a draft prospect that flew up boards. He ended up getting drafted with the 40th overall pick in this year's draft by the Saints, and this was the highest pick that a quarterback has gone to New Orleans since Archie Manning back in the day. One of the main things that people like about Shuck is actually his durability and age. A lot of times these young quarterbacks need a few years to develop and are not pro ready. Shuck has played 7 seasons, so he is definitely well versed, and he's also played with so many different offensive coordinators and systems that it makes him extremely diverse. I mean, the guy has played in multiple different systems and he's done pretty well in all of them, and he's just ready to go. Shuck has had a long winding road to the NFL that has been faced with nothing but adversity, as he's overcome 3 season-ending injuries. He's overcome being benched and being stuck on the sidelines for his first 2 years. He definitely has the mental intangibles that a lot of other quarterbacks in this class do not have, which is why he was taken. And he's probably going to battle it out with Derek Carr, Jake Haener, and Spencer Rattler. Alright, I'm going to throw an X on Jake Haener, as he's definitely not going to start. Derek Carr is pretty much washed at this point, and Spencer Rattler didn't really show all that much promise. Some are saying that Shuck could start right away, but my personal opinion is that he will be starting by the end of the season and not at the beginning. All of these difficulties have given Shuck a new perspective, as he said, quote, "You don't think it's possible when you're getting carted off the field, but you have to have that self-belief and support around you. I was just happy to be in that moment and go to an organization and team that believes in me, and I'm ready to go compete." So yeah, we've pretty much covered a decade in this video, as his recruitment started back in 2016, and by the end of the 2025 NFL season, it will have been 10 seasons. Shuck is definitely the most unique quarterback prospect in this year's draft class, and I would say his story was pretty much impossible. But what do you guys think? If you're a Saint or a fan of any of the schools that Shuck attended, what do you think of him? Do you think he'll start this year? And what other rookies should I cover next? Be sure to let me know down below. Leave a like if you support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out all of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.